Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Real Talk with Michelle podcast. This is episode number 71, Real Talk with intuitive healing coach and friend, Woo Greer. Woo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited for you to be here. Take a moment and just tell the listeners a little something about yourself.
Oh, okay. So, as she stated, my name is Woo Greer. I am an intuitive life coach. I assist people in helping them break through patterns and cycles that sometimes they're unaware of or that they are aware of. They're like, why do I keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? And so we kind of dive deep into that. And I got into this because I didn't realize this was something that I always did. Like I did this from the beginning of time, and people used to always come to me for advice, even when I was younger. I remember the last corporate job that I had, this older lady that used to work there, she used to always say, "You are so wise for your age." And I used to think like, yeah, I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. And so I have always been like super fascinated with humans in general. I love to observe and just kind of figure out why they do the things that they do. I watch body language. I read it all. So this is how I learned this is how I learned to read energy, right? It wasn't like I was trying to. I just started to hone in on the things that I do when I'm like sitting in front of somebody or somebody speaking to me. I watch their body language. I watch how they breathe. And then I just have this awareness or this knowing that this is what's happening. Let's go to the, I know where to go to get to the root of that thing and start helping them to unpack it. So I've been doing this literally all of my life, but taking it seriously was probably over the past 3 years. Ended up going to the estuary to get like my life coaching degree.
Yeah.
I mean, certification, not degree, Lord. But which,
learning.
I did that because I honestly, I did that because I felt like I needed to have something for the people to take me seriously.
Okay. Let's take a quick step backwards a little bit and tell me a little about your early life. What kind of just your early life here, what kind of led you going towards the path that you're on now?
Okay, so
what you're comfortable with only, of course.
No, right. I can't really say what led me here because when I was younger, when I was 6 years old, my dad introduced me to the Bible.
Okay.
And he did it out of punishment.
Right.
So anytime I was being defiant or I wasn't following directions, he would always make me read a scripture out of the Bible or read a story in the Bible that was related to my behavior or whatever. And I remember I used to dread it and hate it so much. I used to get so frustrated. First of all, it was always the King James version, so nothing really made sense to me. And then it was just, to me, unnecessary. But there was this one time, and I can't tell you exactly what I was reading, but I remember that I had started to love it. Mm-hmm. And it was the stories. I was so fascinated about the people of the Bible and listening to those stories and their interactions with God. So that kind of started me on my spiritual journey, right? Okay. So from there, I grew up out east in the project, Settle Court and Lishie. So there was always the saviors that are coming to the hood to try to help, the inner city kids or whatever. And there was this church, the church bus called Inner City Ministry Kids or something like that. So I used to get on the bus and go to Bible study every Tuesday. And then Thursday, Faith is a Victory Church used to come to the school that's located in the projects, which is called West School. And I would go there on Thursday. So every time my parents were looking for me, I was always at somebody's church. Now, I wasn't forced to go to church. I just started because I became very interested in this book that I was reading. And so I had a lot of questions, some of which I feel like they couldn't answer. Okay. Because of how I interpret a lot of what I read.
That's a common thing that I've noticed, the most inquisitive children, or the children that are like interested in learning different things, is that we don't get a lot of answers to the questions. Like, we want to understand the word, but adults don't really have the answers for us. So we have to
I
seek
do
deeper.
I do believe that it has something to do with who we were in our past lives as well. I think we continue to pick up and move towards the goal of clearing our karma and ascending and leaving. So it's like, because
Yes.
even in the Bible, it talks about how a good curiosity is what makes a good prophet. And so we all come here being prophets of God, and we
Yes.
all have that curiosity in us because we are co-creators, and so
Mhm.
we are manifestations of God. And so with that, we have all the natural same ability, the curiosity, the creativity, all of that is already within us. Some of us, some of it, for some of us, it lies very dormant in us. And so when
Mhm.
you start to get those people, those kids who are very inquisitive and start asking those questions, it's like, what in the world? But then also plant seeds for them to like get their wheels going, even if they never come up with the answer or know that they already have the answer and don't already trust themselves to say whatever it is or what they're thinking.
Right. Very, very true. And when I was reading kind of, up and about you from what I don't already know, like, how did you start to discover some of your intuitive gifts, and what was that like for you?
So it was around the same time. I think that I literally believe that our steps are ordered, right? Everything that we do, we're ordained to do these things. So like even from my dad introducing me to the Bible right at 6 years old, even if it wasn't in the best way, because I didn't start off having a love relationship with the word.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like shortly after that I started to have dreams.
Okay.
And so I started to connect myself with Joseph in the Bible because I used to read about him having dreams. And the church would always talk about how he went from the pit to the palace because he was able to interpret dreams and all of these things. And so I used to have dreams.
Okay.
And then I just used to know stuff. I don't know how I knew it. I just knew it. And so I got in trouble a lot for that because
Mm-hmm.
I like, are you snooping? You in grown folks' business,
Oh,
all
yes.
these
Like,
different
you're
things.
being
Yeah.
nosy.
And I'm like, no, I just got this feeling, or I just know. And I couldn't really give an explanation on how I knew. So it came off as if I was lying about,
Mm-hmm.
where the information come from. But I used to dream a lot about people, and I still do to this day. And sometimes it's just so random where I have these dreams about people. Maybe they're a follower on Instagram or something. And I used to think, maybe
Mm-hmm.
I saw their page. This is why I'm dreaming about them. But it would nag me and bug me until I say something about it. And then I
Right.
would like maybe send them a DM like, hey, I had this dream, and I would tell them what I felt the message was. And I would always say, take what resonates with you. It doesn't have to be true for you. It always comes back like, oh my gosh, so this is what I've been. I'm like, no, this is not what this is. I just wanted to tell you what spirit told me to share with you, and that's it. But yeah, so it started. And I remember when I was like 10 years old, and I remember praying to God saying, take this away from me.
Mm-hmm.
I
Like,
didn't
it
want
was
it no more.
scary.
I don't know if it was scary. I just didn't like the fact that I got in trouble about it so much. I
Okay.
didn't like that it made me feel different from everybody else. It made me different. I wasn't like the rest of the kids that I grew up around. And so I didn't like that. I didn't like being different at
I
all.
was I saw something online where, like, I think sensitive kids and like kids who kind of pick up on, like you said, like energies of others around them, like body language. And I've always kind of been able to do that, but they did like put it another way to me, where they were like, maybe it was because of like some of the things that were going on in like my household. I became a little more vigilant about noticing like other stuff about people, which I was like, that's kind of fair. But outside of what my parents might have had going on or anything around me that might have made me a little more like knowing when somebody might have an argument or like something's brewing, I could do that outside of my house with people just the same way. So I like kind of like you were saying about like a gift for me, I always just felt like I just kind of know, I know what's gonna happen. I can already, like, as soon, like if the inner, like if I walked into a place and I can just feel like it's heavy in here, or like people aren't happy in here, and it like makes me kind of want to like get out of those places. Like that was a thing for me where like my mother might have wanted me to go somewhere and I'm like, I don't want to go over there, because every time I go over there I could tell like things just weren't right. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But
Because energy do not lie. It cannot lie. And I always say that. And I think a lot of us, what happens is that we don't have the language for it. And so
right.
if you don't have the language, then it's not real, because you
Mhm.
can't really put it into words. So, or you're making it up. And so, yeah, a lot of our parents, they really didn't know what to do with with a
Right.
lot of this, because it's crazy. We're all sentient beings. We all feel. We
Yes.
all know when something isn't right for us, because God is so expansive that like God speaks to us in so many different ways. And so, but
Mhm.
what we've been trained to believe and think that God only speaks to us through one way, and it's through the good book. And it's like, no,
Right.
God speaks to us. Hell, sometimes I'm sitting watching a TV show, binge watching something, and like so many messages come through for me. Like if in my phone, if you was to look at my phone and my notes, you would be like, this girl is mad. It's like I have so many notes in my phone, because it is. I could be walking down the street and something hit me. An animal I saw,
Yes.
and I could immediately know, like, okay, this message is for me. Watching TV,
Absolutely.
listening to music, having interactions with other humans. Like I just,
I'm the same way. My
we're
note
always
apps is wild because I feel the same way you feel. Like when it could just be the most, like sometimes I'm writing in my journal and a whole other kind of thought comes in. I'm like, ooh, let me do that. Let me write that down real quick, just somewhere else, because this is something like spirit wants me to like look into, or an idea, or just an idea to do something else, or a thought about something I've been thinking of or waiting for the answer to. And it just kind of comes to me in those moments too. I feel like that's so exciting. I feel like that's when you like you started to you've cleared out a lot of chatter, because that's what I feel like a lot of my work was to do, was to clear out all the chatter, because my brain all the time was doing a million things per minute, and like none of the important messages were coming
coming
through
through.
to me.
That's what I do with my clients in a
Mhm.
way. Like I'm not teaching them intuitive work per se, but
Right.
I'm teaching them to like work through the shadow, right?
Yeah.
And the shadow is just the ego, that part of ourselves that we have a hard time facing or admitting, or we may have an awareness to, but we don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I break that?
Yes.
And so,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you
And
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, and so like that's part of my work, because if you start to move through that, you start to clear a lot of that stuff, then you can become more of a clear channel to receive and hear and just know these messages as they show up. Now, you still always have moments of like, is that me or is that spirit? Right. But
Yes.
that's also one of the things that you eventually learn. And part of that is just learning to trust yourself. Like I teach you to learn to trust who you are. When I'm in my sessions, the first thing I say, I give like a rule of I give the rules of engagement. And my first rule is I don't allow you to say I don't know, because I believe in the power of words. And if you put
Yes.
that out there, you will not know. But if it hasn't come to you, sit with it for a second. Write it
Mhm.
down if you need to, wonder about it, and let it come to you. There's no pressure in having to know right then and there, but stay open to the possibilities of the way that this message may come across to you. So don't get into
Mhm.
talking about I don't know, because you do know. I promise you, you just don't know
Yeah,
this.
exactly. That's very powerful. Like that's very affirming too, to have somebody just say, don't say you don't know. But to just be like, I need to sit with that for a second. And like it's not the knowledge isn't there yet, but I need to like sit with it for a second to figure it out. Um, I want like talk about what you've noticed in your work a little bit. Like what's the collective like needing lately, like as far as like healing? Where's it what's going on?
what I've noticed is that everybody who comes and meet with me or do sessions with me are just like me.
Okay. They're
And
called
so
to you.
they are definitely called to me, majority. And if there are some that come in contact with me, I also have an awareness that like this may not work. And so I have to give the whole I'm not
Yeah.
for you, we're not for each other, and it has nothing to do with who you are. But overall, there is this lack of worth.
Okay.
There is a lot of which is rooted in a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And
Mm.
I can notice it from a mile away because that's my story. That's my background, right? And
Mm.
a lot of times like I don't feel worthy of a lot of things. So I had to do a lot of work through that. And as I'm working through it, I meet more people like me that share a piece of my story. When I first started to like get very serious and like do this on a regular, like this is gonna be my full time. Um
Yes. Congratulations
work.
on that too.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
When I decided to stop doing hair and move into this um more seriously, I struggled from the very beginning. And I remember like I had to start back therapy when I started doing sessions with people because of the way that it affected me.
Mhm.
I remember after like a month of doing sessions, I was seeing 3 different clients regularly through the month. So after that first month, I remember when I got into my second therapy session, we got on that Zoom call and I bawled for 45 minutes straight. And
Wow.
I'm not a big crier. First of all, I'm a Virgo. So
You're
tears,
not.
what are these? What are these? So
Listen, I
I
remember sitting in that, just a quick story, guys. I remember sitting in like probably one of the first circles I sat in with women about like awakening and everything. And I remember everybody in this circle was bawling and Woo was over there just looking completely normal. Like, what is wrong with y'all? Like, not judging us or anything, but just being like, y'all are some crybabies. Like
what is happening?
everybody.
So first, okay, before I get back into it, but that's because I receive a lot through my body. Feeling
Okay.
like I receive a lot, not just through feelings, but like I receive so much information in my body. Like I can sit in a session or be around somebody and I can start feeling the pain hitting my body. And I immediately know exactly what it is. And so I might come be like, oh, is this okay, so this is what I'm feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
you can take it, you can leave it. I'm not saying that you just because this is what I'm feeling doesn't make it true, right? We all
Right.
have our own truths. And so I feel it in my body. So when everybody around me starts having an emotion, like I absorb it in my body. So
Okay.
I was recently reading about empaths because everybody talks about I'm an empath, I'm an empath, I'm an empath, but it's like empaths make up 1 to 2% of the population on Earth, right?
Right.
And I'm like, not everybody is an empath. Now we all do receive messages and we can like empathize and
Mm-hmm.
other people's feelings, but to actually how it affects you energetically is very different, right? And so I was I was reading up about it and I had did like my human design anyway. That's a whole nother conversation for a different day.
Ooh,
And so like
yes.
I've been tapping into that a whole lot. And I've learned that like I am legit an empath. It all makes sense now. And so I feel it. And when I feel it, it gets very uncomfortable for me a lot of at that moment. When at that
Mhm.
time I was still learning what to do when I received the way that I was. And when I'm in those space with more than 3 people,
Right.
it's a lot. I hate going to the grocery store. I literally cannot go to the grocery store without having headphones to try to help block a lot of what's going on around me so that I don't
Yes.
absorb a lot of that. So I need a distraction to be happening at the same time so that like my waves don't start catching everybody else's frequency. So that's why it was team too much for me. Team too. You
I
know,
just remember.
and then naturally, I'm also like I'm like, oh my gosh, let me help you. Give me a hug. Tell me why you're crying. And so
Yes.
I had to watch that. I remember my husband first telling me this was like a while ago, right before I stopped doing hair. And I had wrote it on my mirror because I write a lot of messages to myself on my mirror to remind me. And he
Yeah.
used to say, "You not assigned to everybody." And so I wrote that on the wall. And I'm
You're
like, I
blessed.
see that every day because I have to know this because I know my heart and I care a lot about people. At the same time, I want to
Mhm.
help people. whether I want to be around them or not, but I do want to help. I want to make sure you're okay. I want to give you a safe space. But
Yeah.
I have to know that you are not for me and I'm not for you. And I can't do everything for everybody. I can't. It's just,
Yes. That's such an important thing to like learn too. Is like, who, I like sometimes I'll just have to be like, you know what? Like, I love you so much. I pray for this person to have this. And I hope like I wish them the way through it, but I can't take it on all day, every
yeah,
day. Like I
not, not
mm-mm,
at
mm-mm.
all. And but if I'm not careful, I will try to.
Yeah.
I literally would try to. And I think when I was doing hair, it kind of prepared me for that. Because every time someone sat in my chair, it was like they would pour their life out to me. And every other client would be like, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I'm like, and still to this day, people say this to me. I could be
Yeah.
out in the store, somebody walk up and like, I like your hair. I'm like, thank you. And when I make eye contact with them, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I want to tell you this. And I'm like, please don't. I
No,
just
please.
I'm trying to get dinner for the night and go on out the door. So I have to be I had to learn boundaries. Like Kenya was somebody who really taught me real
Good.
boundaries, not just by telling me, but by setting them by example. Like,
Exactly. Like these are my
play with these
things too.
boundaries because she understood how boundaries kept her safe energetically, spiritually, physically, and all of those things. I didn't grow up in that way. And so
Mhm.
having, I didn't grow up in that way. And, I got to kind of
Important
mom it
lesson.
like boundaries, girl, boundaries. You got your nerve. Shut my door if you want to. Everything in here belongs to me. I'm like,
Nothing is yours.
I got this for Christmas. This is mine. No, girl.
So
Yeah, part of it, my
true.
money, it belongs to me. And I'm like, okay, so I didn't learn boundaries at all. So
Hmm.
she was very, 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 she's been very like important to my journey
That's
and
great.
healing.
It's important to have somebody we can journey through this with, or who might have learned a lesson before us a little bit, that can like share stuff with us like that. That's really important to me too. But you were saying like people like some of your clients are just not feeling worthy. Like that's kind of like a number one thing that's happening right now. I can see that. That's something I've had to reteach myself too. Like,
It's
oh,
ongoing though. It's like an ongoing battle. Even when you get to this level in your journey and you like, I know that I'm worthy. There's a difference between knowing and feeling that you are worthy, right?
mhm.
So, um, so with that being said, it's just like you don't recognize at every level, every point that worth is playing a part in this.
Yeah, because it's like you got to this one level in the journey. You're like, all right, I'm here, like I'm comfortable doing that stuff, and then you're like, all right, there's some other things that I do want to accomplish, and I have to push myself to this next level. When you get there, you've evolved, so the people, the situations, everything that come along with that too require a different version of yourself, and you have to feel worthy to be in that space like all over again. So I think it is definitely an ongoing thing. I'm working with it, It-
And it's not like this is
it's
a
forever.
journey. It's a
Yeah.
journey. It's not like a destination. You're not gonna just reach it. I'm like even when people talk about I'm healed and I'm like, you're healing. Like
Mm.
I'm still healing from a lot of things. And some stuff that I really did some intense work on still comes up in certain
Yeah.
situations because we don't know all of our triggers. We don't know what
Exactly.
affects us in those ways. But as I was telling you, when I first started the journey of like opening up my practice and I sat in that first therapy session and I literally bawled for 45 minutes straight and she just listened to me. I mean, I wept.
Crying.
And she just was like sitting there the whole time. It was just like she was holding space for me to feel those emotions, right? And so
Hmm.
that was the big moment for me of having to learn what do I do with the stuff that I receive, right? Because
Yes.
a lot of that was staying in my energy, but mostly I was weeping because I like I just have a different type of respect and love for women today.
Hmm.
I
I
score.
said that. I was like, I said, I'm so happy that women are starting to just soften back up to each other, like, and hold space for each other in community again. 'Cause, like, somewhere that like got lost a little bit.
It's and especially in our community, right?
Yeah.
And in a Black woman, because when I can remember growing up and hearing like if another Black girl did something to me, oh, she's just jealous of you, or like these things were really planted into us at such an
Right.
early age, and so we grew up feeling like we're in competition with each other versus like we in this together, and
Right.
not
We
only
can help
that.
each other instead of, thinking that girl, like, that girl is hateful, and just being like, hey sis, like, what have I done to you? Or what have you perceived that I have done, so we can talk about it? Because a lot of that, like, it would be nothing. Like when I would finally talk to that girl or the woman and like ask what was really going on, like it's something so minuscule that like can be squashed or was not even important at all.
I mean, it seems that way, but again, you have to understand other people's triggers in the way that they
True.
were raised. So what may be small to you
Mhm.
is very big for them, because it was the same for me. Like my sister and I, we grew up. I have two sisters and a brother, and there was some resentment between my older sister and me. And so,
Okay.
and we grew up that way. My mama worked multiple jobs. So she was in the household taking care of us. And, she treated us as if we were her children, me and my youngest sister. And I always looked at her as my sister. And so we were running into some issues there because she feels like, she has the word of mama. So I have to
Um,
follow in with that. And so it created a lot of resentment between us. And then because it created a lot of resentment towards us. So her and my mom was my first example of interacting with women. And
mhm.
so as I got older, it wasn't until probably like 2 years ago when I recognized how I didn't have the best relationships with women and how
Mhm.
that was really a problem, right? In the past, I knew I didn't have great relationships with women, but I didn't care. I just like, oh, I get
Mhm.
along better with men. This is cool. I don't necessarily need to have relationships with other women and stuff like that.
Right.
It's because I didn't trust them or I never felt safe with women. And
Okay.
it could be something so small, that something you said that offended me. And instead of me going to you and saying, hey, that offended me, I just would completely distant,
A cutoff.
take flight
Yeah.
and be done with it. And but that's because that's what I learned in my household. It was
Okay.
never safe to be emotionally vulnerable.
Mhm.
And so
Okay.
now I'm learning to do that all over again. And the reason that I learned to do these things is because I had to do the work within myself, right? It wasn't never about anybody else. I needed to create a safety for myself and what it looks like, and stop putting my safety in the hands of somebody else. So even if
Mhm.
I came to you, Michelle, and I said, hey, when you said that, you hurt my feelings, and you like, well, the last time we had this conversation, you said that, like if you took it there, like it's not for me to feel unsafe in that moment. It's
Right.
time for me to discern how I want to continue moving forward through this relationship. Do I want to
Mhm.
try to hold space for you to get there, or do I need to like tell you this isn't going? I don't want to be in friendship with you anymore and go on by my separate way. Now
Right.
this is something that I've learned. I don't have to wait for you to create a safe space for me. I just have to know that you don't have the capacity or the ability at that moment to do that for me. It doesn't stop me from being emotionally vulnerable with you, but it does
Right.
stop me from having a relationship with you.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, you're so right. And I think for me, I definitely had to learn to be able to hold space for other people, because I always thought I was right. So
Mhm.
like I had to learn, like sometimes like other people have an emotional response to things that you were doing too, and that's okay, because like if I thought I was right, nothing else you could have said would have even mattered. But
Hey,
and
that's
so
that Virgo in you. That Virgo rise. What is you, a Virgo, a
And
rising?
listen, wait though. I just found out that my mother fluffed the time of day. Like I'm actually an Aquarius rising, like all the way.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'm like that Virgo though, like it's there. Like I feel like a connection to it. There's definitely like a little Virgo in my chart, but Like not a lot. I just think I'm just the things about the Virgo, like the meticulousness, that's a real thing for me.
Yeah, it's the same. Well, see, I have a lot of air in my chart, so I'm a Virgo, but I'm a Libra rising and moon, and so
Yes.
that organization and all of that stuff really, I'm not that type of Virgo. Like I kind of move
You
with
got
the
that
wind.
air.
I move with the wind. But
Yeah.
I was the same way. I had a hard time, admitting when I was wrong, or even listening to people tell me how the things that I did or said hurt them or whatever, because I immediately would feel shame or
Yeah.
guilt
Yep.
because I hurt you. And like,
Mhm.
I know my intentions going in is never to hurt anybody. Like I love to help others. I love to serve
Yeah.
others. And so to know that I did something to cause you harm used to make me feel a lot of shame and guilt. And so I will run from that as well, because it's
Mhm.
the same way I used to do with my relationship with God, which is why I moved from a more religious background to a more spiritual foundation. Now I have more of like a spiritual foundation. Like I'm open to all the ways that God communicates to me, because what the church did to me was they created so like war within myself,
Mhm. Yeah.
because you can't do this, you can't do, but I'm like, I naturally feel this way,
Mhm.
right? And I know they talk about if you feel that way, then you probably because you're feeding the flesh and all of this stuff. But I'm like, no, I was literally designed.
Right.
Like, I can't cut this off. I don't know what you want me to do with this. It's
Right.
like, and so I'm like, to make a mistake was very hard for me. And I used to feel
Mhm.
so much shame and so much guilt. And so I would take long pauses and break from church. Like I would leave church for 6 months, a year at a time, because I would literally hide from God. And church wasn't the only place that I had a relationship with God with, but even in my own practices, I wouldn't practice
Right.
because I'm running from God right now as if I can. But like
Mhm.
that was what this was always something that I battled with.
Right.
And I was sick of it. I got to a place and I'm like, I started having these. I had more questions that people couldn't answer. I remember going back and forth in like Sunday school, even as an adult. I'm talking about as a grown adult with like what I think to be true. And I
Right.
remember when I had my last corporate job, my boss was a deacon of his church. And so we used to talk about a lot of stuff in the Bible. And he used to
Right.
always tell me, like, I love your perspective on how you view and see the Bible. And I'm like, because not everything in that Bible is true. You
Right.
have to think about
It was written
like
by a man still. Like,
that, and like it's not even just so much as it being written by a man, but it's also the power that humans want to possess. And
yeah.
so what other way can we take what other way can we have power and take your power away?
Mm-hmm.
And some of that work, some of them words is just that. Like it's
Right.
like you can't do this. So if I don't do this, like you take away my natural abilities to be who I am created to be authentically, you take away my
Yeah.
power.
Okay. Yeah, that's such a beautiful way to look at that. Tell me, you're very intentional on the way that you approach your relationship. You're married and the connection that you guys have. What led you into that? Like being more intentional about your relationship, your marriage, how you connect.
So with my marriage, I just I had so many failed relationships prior to, and I like so many, like a lot. But my very first relationship I was ever in, I started dating this guy when I was 13 till I was 21. He became very physically abusive when I was 16. And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up getting pregnant by him at 16. And this is when the abuse started. The day that I found out I was pregnant, he was like, well, we finna get this baby up out of you. And so he used to
Wow.
start like hitting me in my stomach. And then we would physically fight. Like I'm from the hood. And so to me, we fought so much. I used to think that I wasn't a victim to domestic violence because I fought his ass back. Like I
Right.
didn't just, lay down. But again, this is how my mind was conditioned to believe, because first I come from the hood, and so my mama she raised fighters. Like she
Right.
raised us to fight so that we can protect ourselves in what I call the jungle.
Right.
And so he became very abusive towards me, and then later, like how I got away from him, because I still would just naturally go back to him always. And and again, whereas being adults today, we would be like, okay, she is stupid, she's crazy, why does she keep going back into this situation? Well, I later discovered, as I was doing my work, this was probably summer 2020, when I was really unpacking the stuff as to why I kept going back. I grew up, my mama I used to get whoopings a lot. Whether I was getting smacked for something I said, or like getting an actual whooping a lot. And so my mama would whoop me, but then she would be like, I love you. Right? Like, I love you. And so I would go back into her space, wanting that affection. And so like I later found out that that was the correlation to why I chose a lot of abusive relationships, because he wasn't the only abusive relationship.
It was just in a different way.
Yeah, it was just in a different way. So it was just in a different way. And I'm gonna break that down a little bit more. I'm saying I later like had correlated the abusive relationships that I had with men to my relationship that I had with my mom. And it wasn't like like growing up culturally, it's just a lot of things that our great grandparents took with them that passed down through generations, right? And so with each generation that comes through, they're like, I'm gonna do it better than the last. I know I didn't like how this was, so I'm gonna treat my kids this way. But even though whoopings were like normal in our culture, and still is for some to this day,
yeah,
I choose personally not to whoop my children because of how it affects me emotionally and mentally, right? And I used to have these hard conversations with my mom. We've done a lot of healing behind this, and I understand now where she comes from with a lot of it. But I later learned that the relationships that I chose were because of her. And so a lot of times we think that women grow up and be with guys that are like their dad. No, it's the parents who have the most effect on you. It's the parent where you feel the most love from, or what you think or believe is love. And so you search for that thing that's very familiar, right? No matter if it's safe or toxic or whatever, we search for things that are familiar to us. It's just how the human mind works. And so he was very abusive, and he used to talk crazy to me, all of this stuff. And so I dealt with that until I was 21. It ended up breaking in my home, and then sending me to the hospital later. So with stitches all in my face and my gums and stuff. And so that is kind of how we ended up breaking apart, because he ended up going to jail behind that for a while.
Yeah.
And moving on to my next relationship, he was an emotional abuser. And it was just like, I had a physical abuser, emotional abuser, verbal abuser. So I just kept going after the abuser. And because I felt like I would go there with them, I wasn't a victim, right? It wasn't until I got married that things changed. Well, it was the relationship prior to my marriage that really kind of opened my eyes to some things, because of like, it was a lot of pressure around that relationship of me like opening up and being a little bit more emotionally vulnerable and being things that I wasn't ready to be. Right. And so from there, when I got into this relationship with my husband, and I knew that my husband was exactly for me. Like, I remember praying this prayer, asking God to remove like my feelings and these thoughts for this person that I was dating before him. Like, if this is not who I'm supposed to be with, then like, I need you to move him out of my awareness. And I, like a month later, one of my friends said to me, I ain't heard you talk about him. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even noticed that I hadn't thought about it. But I knew that he was supposed to be a part of my life during that season, because there was a lot of things that brought a lot of things into awareness, like some of the things that I needed to work on personally. And so when I got into this relationship, we have been friends for like 8 years prior to dating. I never saw myself dating him. All my friends used to be like, "Why y'all don't date? Y'all are so good together." I'm like, "Because he's like the boy version of me. Like he's the boy
Right.
version of me. So what does that look like? Me dating myself?" Now that was also a red flag for me, because if I couldn't date myself, then what I look like being, somebody else dating
Yeah,
me.
exactly.
So that gave me more insight to like things that I needed to work through and work on about myself. And
Mhm.
so when we got together, he is literally the male version, but he's also the male version of my mom.
Okay.
In,
Ah,
in a way of like how he triggers me and challenges me that makes me very uncomfortable. It's not unhealthy.
right.
One would deem it to be unhealthy sometimes based off of my response to it and initially, because I'm like, it's like growing up in my childhood home all over again. Okay,
Right.
spirit is like this on my shoulder, like it's time to heal this. It's time to work through this. You can't run, because now
Yeah.
you've made a commitment, you've made a vow to this person in this relationship before God that you guys are gonna be together through thick and thin, for better or for worse. And it's not that it was an abusive relationship, it wasn't a toxic relationship, but we were
Yeah.
headed in a direction had I not started to do the work that was going to move me into a different light, into a different, into my highest self,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Exactly.
still working on moving into that direction. So there were things about him that triggered so much of my childhood, that what happened initially through our beginning of our relationship. And he said this reason. He said, "You've been 1 foot out the door since this relationship started." Because I've been wanting to run, run, run. Okay, the minute that I feel like this is unsafe for me, let me get the hell up out of here. Let me get the hell up out
Mhm.
of here. No, Woo, you gotta sit your ass still and you gotta
Yeah.
move through this. Why does it make you feel this way? Why are you triggered by this? What is really happening? And every time I sat with it, it never had anything to do with him. He was just,
Mhm.
he's the vessel that God is using to move me.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Mm.
But with that though, he is also, our marriage is one of the reasons why I created Equally Aligned, which was a journal and card deck of questions to help couples, people who are seriously dating in a relationship, to talk about some things that will come up in your marriage, that I feel like it's very important for you guys to have these conversations, so that you know that you're on the same page and it's just not about attraction. This is like, we
Right.
talk about building and doing life with each other, right? And just
Exactly.
knowing if this person is truly my person, or somebody that I want to do the work with, right?
Mhm.
I'm not gonna sit here and act like, oh, my marriage has been super easy. It hasn't, because of all the work that I had to do. Like, I have experienced so much trauma in my life,
Mhm.
we don't even have enough time to go through a lot of it. And
Mhm.
so there was a lot of things that he was feeling like he was having to take the fall for, because of these things that happened, prior to us being in a relationship with each other. And it's mind boggling for him a lot of times, because it's like, oh my gosh, like how like, God, it's not one thing he can say to me that I haven't had an experience.
Uh-huh.
And that's so hard for him. It's so
Yeah.
hard for him, because it's like he's having to, he used to feel like he was walking around on eggshells a lot. Because,
Mhm.
if I come down too hard on this, then I'm gonna create an explosion. But I also
Right.
had to learn how to like chill, how I
Mhm.
respond to things. Because
Yes.
like, I come from a loud ass household. We cuss and we go out. We go off on each other, but we cool afterwards. And he used to be like, I don't know what to do with that.
Oh, right. That's a lot for somebody else. Like,
And he's the only child. Like, he's like, oh,
he's
what?
just not even used to anybody else saying anything. Once they say something to him, it's over and it's quiet again. It's like,
It is. He's like, or he doesn't have these interactions with people, because it's just him. And like,
yeah.
he grew up, his parents are older, they're married, like his background is so different from mine. So to like, sometimes I'm a lot for him,
Yeah.
but we have conversations a lot. And like, there's nobody else on this earth that I would rather do the work with other than him. Like,
Mhm.
he still legit is my best friend, but like, he was my friend before that. And sometimes it get a little tricky, because it's like, is my friend still in there? But it's like,
Right.
yeah, but trauma is also real.
Exactly.
And I've had to like talk to him about holding space for me. Cause like I know how
Mhm.
to do that for other people, but I need people to do that for me as I move through my journey as well. Like I
Exactly.
I need your
You need a
assistance.
little grace sometimes too.
Mhm,
It's like,
absolutely. Like, or just give me some, yeah, give me some, have patience with me while I navigate through whatever this is coming up for me.
I will say that the relationship I'm in now, he was also a very big catalyst to helping me like see outside of myself because like I said, I think people were afraid to even try to tell me stuff because like I said, I thought I knew everything. You couldn't tell me anything about myself. So it was probably the first person that like I kind of allowed in because it was just such a, it's real soft and touchy when you're in that like moment where you're awakening and like shedding things about yourself and like not really even knowing who you are at the moment.
Mhm,
Just anything anybody say can make you either go off, irritated, cry, or go away from everybody and go inside. And he was really one of the first people who just pointed things out to me. But the relationship works because when I could go in and figure out what it was that triggered that or some deep emotion I didn't know existed that came up, he would give me grace through it. He would be like he really was just like, he told me once, he was like, this is the first relationship that I've been in where I told somebody something and they actually changed it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like fix the behavior or at least knows, like try to figure out or do self-work just to try to figure out like what about that situation like really made me like go towards that way with you. Just a lot of attachment things I had to work through and some
mhm.
stuff from childhood, but he really did just give me a minute. Like it's gonna be wild at first. Like I'm coming out of a lot of old behavior patterns and stuff, and it's hard to rewire yourself a little bit, or at least to say, let me take a minute with that, like you said.
And one thing that you said is like you really trying to figure out who you are, and I think that that's like an ongoing thing. Like we never really truly discover who we are, right?
Right.
That's the part of the journey is
Mm-hmm.
rediscovering self over and over and over and over and over again, and what that looks like for each season and each level of life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm still so even with my husband, sometimes he's like, I don't know, I just don't know what to think. It seems like things are changing like at the blink of an eye. Like last week you like this week you don't. I'm like, because like you said, we're shedding, we're constantly releasing and letting go and making room for like who we're called to
Truth.
be.
Yeah, like at the stage that you're at. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's important, like with a life partner or a husband or somebody you choose to do life with, to know that in the process, like the next day I might not be into the thing again. Like I told people, I used to love going out, being out, social, and then I realized I was like, maybe that wasn't who I really like, or maybe that's what I needed at the moment. But like now, there's a lot more. Like I like being in the house. I like to chill. I like to keep my interactions a little more limited, more intentional with who I'm doing and sharing space with. So that changed. So in the beginning, I had to be like, because we met and we kind of went out and bopped around and Corona happened and everybody had to chill. And it really made me think like, I always loved being in my house. That's why I made my house look beautiful because I like being in it and I wasn't spending time with it. But it like people have to know that at every point in between, this person might change. And are you okay with that? Is that something like, you guys can't like that person is comfortable with? Because I noticed like in a lot of my relationships, when I got ready to open a business or I got ready to do something else, that agitated a partner, and like they weren't used to me being this new person, which had to be a business owner. I had more things to do, a lot of different things to take care of, and it caused friction. So I think what I was looking for in new relationships was to connect where it's safe for me to grow and
Mhm,
change, because
mhm.
a lot of my life up to friends, everybody, I had to explain why I was always changing or why I wanted to do something different or I was taking another path and I wasn't who they were used to me being, basically.
And part of that is like I always tell people initially that we all have potential, right? Everybody has potential in them because we're created in the likeness of God, but not everybody has the capacity to meet that potential. And
Yeah.
so when you decide today, I'm meeting the potential that is set before me, that I know that's within me, like it makes the people around you look at themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And for some, it's challenging, to have to face or see themselves in a mirror. So I refer to my husband as a mirror for me, not
Yes.
necessarily a catalyst for my growth. I mean, some may say that, but for me, it wasn't like he was like, you're doing this is happening. It was always things that I would get annoyed with him about. It always made me reflect on myself.
Yeah.
Okay, if this grinds my gears so much, what is it about this? And how
Right.
does it show up in my life? Like I may not be this way towards him, but am I this way towards my daughter? Am I this way towards a friend? Am I this way how I approach my business? Right? Because a lot of times the things that bothers us about other people is really the very thing that we feel about ourselves. And some of us try to repress and suppress it and push it all the way down, but then you come as a mirror and you're like, you doing this, and it's like you're causing them to have to like get the wheels rolling and do something different. Change is inevitable. Like there's nothing we can do about change is just gonna keep constantly happening. But for a lot of people, change equates to fear. That was me when I first got into my marriage and my relationship. Like I suffered a lot in my first 2 years of marriage. I came into it. Everything happened real quickly. We started dating in July. The end of September, right at the beginning of October, we were like, we need to move in with each other. We started moving in. And as I was moving in, I found out that I'm pregnant. And then he proposed to me in November. And then we got married in December. So that like happened in like a 4 or 5 month span, right?
Wow, I didn't know it was that quick. I mean, I know because I know you, I was watching it, but I don't think I like equated the time.
There's this scripture that's in Amos 9:13-15, that like it plays over and over every time I think about that period of my life, because it talks about how God makes up for lost time. How we feel like, how a lot of people feel like they gotta hit the checklist. I gotta do this and this by this time, by this age. But all of that happened to me in such a short window, right? It was like it said God would make up for lost time and have your head spinning. I was like, my motto for that year, for 2017, I remember like it was yesterday, because it was so, like, that year was so significant. It was faith trumps fear. And so like in order for my faith to trump the fear, I had to be open to all the changes. It was still very hard for me. It was very hard. It was still very hard for me that it started to create like anxiety, and that turned into depression. And by the time I had my baby, I fell right into postpartum depression, and that went on for 18 long months. And this was all within a new marriage.
Right. Ooh. God knew you can handle it though. He knew you can handle it.
I don't think that it was more so about handling it. I think it was just more so about because to me, I don't feel like God do these things to us, or necessarily allow me to have these experiences.
Or struggle,
the struggle. To me, I'm having this experience because there's something here for me to grow, to learn new about myself. When you get to asking, who are you, right? Yes. I'm learning who I am as a divine being, as a human, and all of that at the same time. So a lot of that has to do with what's in alignment and what's not. Yeah. And again, my motto for that year was faith trumps fear. But as the changes started to take place, my fear was kicking in. And then I wasn't allowing myself room to grieve. Like, we forget that grief is so important for us to have to process, because we think that grief is only associated to when somebody dies. I did die. I literally died.
Yes.
It was
a whole version of yourself.
A whole version of myself. And so having to come into this new space of being a mom of not just the twins, because it was just me and the twins for a while.
Yes.
For a while. And now I have more children. You know, my husband came with 2, so now we got 4, and we pregnant. We about to have 5. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the girl with all the kids now.
Oh my gosh.
And I knew how to be a parent to Reagan and Riley. I knew how to be a mama to them. I figured it out. Like, even at the beginning of that process, it was very challenging. But once we got our groove going, boom, here we are, 3-4 years, and then boom, a new change, something come in and change, and then I'm having to adjust. And then when I got pregnant, I was so sick, I couldn't work, so I had to become dependent on my husband. And I'm talking about, I've been making money since I was in the 2nd grade. What are we doing here? Help me. I can't braid a head. I can't get out.
You were so sick. I remember you were.
I was trying so hard to, like, in that resistance. So this is what was creating this anxiety. This is what started the wheels of depression, because I was resisting the change. I'm like, I know that my baby don't want me doing y'all hair stuff, but I'm going to try anyway. I remember having a client in a chair and having to leave out, go to the bathroom and throw up and come back.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, do you want to reschedule? I'm like, no.
I gotta do this. Like, we can't.
I'm trying to prove a point.
It's so wild that you say that, like, in the way that you say it. Like, the baby was like, hey, Mom, you ain't really supposed to be doing this. There's other things you need to be paying attention to, some other work you're being called to. Because, like, I was feeling the resistance. Like, I sat at Eastside Nails for a minute and I was doing nails again. Like, I'm like, I need to make some money. My money situation's changed since I've gotten a divorce, and I'm like on my own again. But I already knew I was being pushed to, one, do this podcast, work on this, which led me into, like, looking into coaching as well. And I remember I went back in, I was working, I was finally back in the groove. And then we got that tornado that came through that just kind of, like, did all that. That took me out of the seat. I was really trying to do the business end of it, which was what I was doing, like making sure the girls, like, you know, like their clients knew what was going on, rescheduling, all the stuff that goes with that. And then I got back in there for a week, and then Corona happened. Like, it was like, I was not supposed to be in that chair, whatever way other people look at it. Like, I explained it to my mother, and she was like, that's wonderful that you can see that that was what was happening. Like, I wasn't supposed to sit in that chair. Like, it was taking me away from other projects that I was passionate about, like sharing my voice, which was a thing for me. I lost my voice during the whole process of, like, when I was awakening, like, soft spoke, like, people couldn't hear me anymore. And it was like, I did a lot of work to push back into sharing my voice with people, like things I have to say, sharing a message, telling people stuff that I had been through during that time, like just how difficult it was. And so after Corona, I was like, I'm not going to push myself back into Eastside Nails, because I just didn't feel like I was supposed to be sitting there. I'm like, that's my business. It's supposed to bring abundance to me so that I can work on my other things. Mm-hmm. And so, like, but being able to, like, not be afraid to do it, it was a little easier, because, like, I came out of corporate America and was like, I'm about to go to nail school. I was good and broke then, but I, like, figured that out. And you know, there was something waiting on the other side of that, a business that is turning into something that brings me what I need so I can work on what brings me, like, joy and, like, makes me light up, like talking to you and, like, getting to share this with people who listen to my podcast. Yeah, but I feel you on that. Like,
and see, people would say that, like, God, that you know, then the next prayer with all of that happened to you, like the tornado, then Corona, like, God, why is this happening to me? Why are you doing this to me? It's like, no, what are you missing? Because it's not happening to you, it's happening for you.
Yeah.
So, like, what are you missing? What are you resisting? Like, moving into that space versus, like, oh, all of this is happening to me at one time. It's like, no, it's happening for you, because it's trying to push you into your authentic self. It's trying to push you towards your truth. Yep. And so I try to teach that a lot, especially with my clients, because, you know, when we start to focus so much on the things that are happening to us, that's when we start to spiral. This is where the anxiety kicks in. This is where the depression kicks in. This is where all those emotions that we start to feel, having panic attacks and things like that, is because we believe that there's some type of external forces causing this to happen. When really, if you
try to control.
trying to control and not operating in alignment. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, when God calls you to a space, it's just so easy to answer that call and move. And now, you get life in abundance. No, there's some pain involved. Every time you move to the unknown, there's pain involved because there's something that you have to leave behind. There's something you have to let go of. And so it's challenging, but you have to have faith. This is where faith kicks in to say that, okay, I trust whatever's on the other side of that. Mm-hmm. I trust whatever's inside this unknown that I'm walking into is literally for my highest good.
Yeah.
And it says that all things work together for the good of those who love God and called according to the purpose. All things, good, bad, ugly, happy, sad, all of those things work for us.
And you have to have faith and trust, like the good is something, like it's on its way, or it's coming. It might not feel like it, but you have to wake up every day, choose your happiness, and still like move through. So like you're gonna get to that space, but it ain't for the weak. That's why we telling people. I'm like, yo, like I took some paid cut, like like a lot to be able to do what I know makes me happy. Money is not what makes me happy. I just like, my needs to be met, but there's some uncomfortable spots where sometimes I like had to work things around, and like now that I've done that, I see now, like, it's like now the financial thing makes sense for me to be able to like do that, but I had to do it. I had to trust, and it was hard, but like here we are on the other side having this conversation. I wanted to talk to you about, I ask people kind of what they do for self-care, and I've always, since I always mention like watching people, and as like everybody knows, I mean online, like we make our posts, we talk about stuff we do, and you became a yoga instructor, and you've always done. I remember when you were doing yoga, you might have just been doing a few poses to watching it turn into like your beautiful flow and practice that you share with people. Is that like one of the things that you do for your personal self-care?
I do. So movement is very important. And like I said from the beginning, I absorb energy in my body. And so it wasn't just about releasing the trauma that's stored in our body, because remember, our body remembers what our mind do not. And so every experience becomes an imprint in our bodies. And so movement was very important for me. Like when I don't have enough sleep, my body will start to have flu-like symptoms.
Okay.
I used to be like, this is so weird, but now I'm starting to understand my body and how it communicates. Like I'm trying to get your attention. Yes. So if I take like a 5-hour nap, when I wake up, I'm not sick no more. I'm literally, the symptoms are gone. I'm not achy. My throat is not scratchy. Like I'm not feeling like weak and all those things. So I'm noticing how my body communicates, like what it requires for me to actually operate at its full capacity. And so movement is important. I like variety. I need variety. So it's not only that I do yoga, I love kickboxing.
Yes, we go to the same gym, guys.
Yes. So like sometimes I need hardcore movement flow. So like
bunch some stuff.
Get it up out of me. Get it up out of me. So yes, yoga movement in general is how I take care of myself. Sometimes I just ride my bike up and down my driveway, up and down my driveway, because I understand how important important it is to me to move. And not just that, but when you're moving, it's also a meditation as well. Like people just only assume meditation is just sitting, breathing. No, when you move, when you drive, like when you focus in on that one thing, like you are in a meditation and messages come to me then. But yoga really literally helped me understand what emotions that I am releasing from my body at the time. I always know when I'm releasing when I go to kickboxing. It ain't up out of me.
I love it. Right. Like, let me get this just a little bit that I got in there that sits in my belly. It's a little burn. It's a little
got me gritting my teeth.
Right. I love kicking that bag. Like, it's just something about that. That's like an amazing release over there.
My husband got me a bag for Christmas too. So if I can't make it to kickboxing, I'm out on the porch going in.
That's a good gift, girl. My neighbors over here probably like, this girl got something new. She in there making the most noise. um, did you have like your own personal like awakening moment where you like where it really clicked for you, like this is about to start a new phase in my life?
Yes. So I remember, I mean, I've legit been on this journey for a very long time. But I remember when Kenya had reached out and she was like, um, she wanted to do a reading, and I was like, great. I was cool. And we had set a date and a time to go and do this reading. I'll never forget the day, December the 20th, 2019.
Okay.
And I went to get a reading from her. And when she started to shuffle the cards and cards were popping out, I had such an emotional response. Like I could not stop sobbing. She was like, oh my gosh, we have to get this. She was saying everything to me at that moment, but she know in my Virgo ways, when you see something, you get stuck. I get stuck right there. I can't see past anything. So my analytical mind, and she's like, listen, I want you to stay open, calm down, take some breaths. Let's try this again. Yes. And so when she got to flipping the cards, I said to her, I'm like, why do I know what this say? And she was like, give it a shot. And so I started, it was like a couple cards that just jumped out to me. And so I started to tell her, she was like, I want to show you something. So she had shown me something that she had written down before I came. And it was like literally the exact message.
Wow.
But then she went on through with the reading and like kind of just validating and affirming some of the things that I knew. But again, I come from a religious background. And so I ain't even supposed to be doing this. What are you doing?
Right.
In my mind at that time, that's how I looked at it. Right. And so, but she played such a big part in me becoming more expansive and allowing more tools to come in, because I was always reminded, like, what are you doing this for? Is it with great intentions, or is it for yourself? You know, like just knowing that how God communicates to us and what's the fruit of that, right? Exactly. What you get from that, what comes from that. And so she kind of always kept me in that realm, but she also allowed me to go through the process and feel how I felt about a lot of stuff, because it was a lot of undoing for me. Like a lot of undoing the things that the church taught me, things that I already was side-eyeing anyway.
Exactly.
I would find myself, and right before that happened though, it was like, it had started with church though. I had found myself jumping from church to church. It felt like the church didn't last long. Like I couldn't find home in church. Right. And so I was jumping around, moving around, and I'm like, okay, I just said, well, maybe pastor, this church have served me,
like it's time for me to go.
It's time for me to go. But it just kept, it was happening too frequently. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't like get rooted like I wanted to. Yeah. And so then my friend Tia, she had told me about Infinity Fellowship, which was a more spiritual based place for people to fellowship. It's called Infinity Fellowship.
I'm writing it down.
She asked me to come visit. I did. I fell in love with the whole concept because it was everything that I was like. I remember telling Rev Jeff, I'm like, this is the vision. I could show you like my journal, like giving people a space to like, you can believe whatever you want to believe. When you come into this space though, all of that is accepted.
Yeah.
Everything is accepted. And this is about life. This is about you becoming a better person. He used to take quotes and that would be the sermon of the day, right? These quotes come from anybody, from Buddha to Ayanla, maybe a certain scripture in the Bible, just anywhere. And like, it was amazing. And I was like, I love this place. And I was so grateful for Tia for introducing that space to me, because it really moved me into a place of being more comfortable with this newfound belief, or, that I have, because now and then I had to have like having conversations with my mom and stuff. And she used to be like, I want all my kids to go to church with me. I'm like, yeah, about that. It's very difficult for me to want to, be in a space that it doesn't feel authentic or in alignment with who I am.
Yeah, because you like to sit there and and you don't feel good starts to become like really making energetic boundaries for yourself that people don't understand. It's on all levels. Like
it creates new imprints. Like I'm doing too much work to get this up out of me, to put myself in environments and situations where I'm going to be placing, causing more of an imprint, and it gets deeper, deeper, deeper embedded into me, that I'm gonna have to do really deep work to get it up out of me. Like we had a funeral to go to, and I'm sitting there listening to the pastor like speak, and I was cringing at some points, because I'm like, they tell you if you don't go to church, then you can't have a relationship with God, or you going to hell. And I'm like, I told my mom, I said, I'm gonna tell you what I believe in, how I believe in heaven and hell. Heaven and hell is a mindset.
It's right here on earth.
It's right here. My will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Yes. There is no difference, right?
Right.
A lot of people living in hell right now. A lot of people sitting on this pew that come here every Sunday, every Wednesday to get the good word, living in hell. Because it's all in our minds. Just like the devil, to me, I told her, I was like, I don't believe in the devil. She was like, really? I'm like, really? And she was like, tell me more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the devil is the ego, mama. It ain't, the devil didn't make you do it, or the devil's not trying to cause you to like jump outside of yourself. The tests and trials are sure to come.
Yes.
What happens is when you in this space and you made a decision, like for example, oh, I'm going to stop drinking, right? Somebody makes the decision to stop drinking, and then they go to a celebration, maybe it's a baby shower, and they got an open bar.
Right.
That ain't the devil. That's that test to give you an opportunity to make good on your word, what you put out into the universe.
You said is giving you an opportunity
to level up. For you to level up, for you to have some discipline about yourself. Okay, just because it's an open bar here, are you going to indulge, or are you going to make good on your word? And then even if you decide to indulge, it's not the devil who made you do it. It was your choice. It was ego. We all have moments where we choose to operate out of alignment in awareness. Like we know this. I don't know if I do this. I do it all the time. Certain foods I know I can't have, right? I know Spirit is taking a lot of stuff from me, and there's certain foods that I can't have. But sometimes when I'm having like a super stressful day, I'm like, I'm eating them Cheetos.
Yes.
And like, I'll suffer the headache afterwards. I know I'm gonna get a headache if I eat these, but I don't care. I'm gonna take that headache. We do it all the time. We eat stuff and then go to the bathroom and like thinking my stomach was messed up. No, it was them.
You know what you ate. You know what you ate. It's so true. I already know it. I tell people like, I already know what my stomach hurt. Like I know exactly what I do.
But guess what? Catch me on a day where I'm like, forget it all. I'm ready to risk it all. I might go back and have the same thing and go through the same issue that I went through.
Yes, listen, tell the people. Because people do try to blame. You cannot blame any external things on it. It is you.
It's you.
It's you, boo. Like a shoe. People don't be wanting to hear that.
It's your choice you make. And like, for example, you know how like somebody may say something and their tone is off and they get smart with you, and you like, especially me coming as a fighter. This is one of the things I had to work through with my marriage, because Ron is super sarcastic at times, and it's annoying, but it's a part of his personality, right? He can be like, he call them not throw shots. What is the word? I can't think of the word that he always used, but like he says stuff to me that like sometimes like, you really be wanting to catch these hands. That's my ego. That's my pride getting into the way, because he done put me in my place. Like, he done said some stuff that done like, ooh, got you there. Right. And not on some intentional stuff, but like kind of telling me about myself. Like, quit acting like your shit don't stink.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And so when he have to tell me when my shit stinks, sometimes it does sting. Like, who raised you?
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to battle with myself. Okay, are you just gonna accept this for what it is, and like it to be true? That's why it stung. That's why I hit you in that spot. It wasn't to hurt your feelings. It was to like make you aware of something, right? But there are some moments where I go there with him, and that's my ego, because my pride ain't gonna let mama ain't raised no hoe.
Right.
And that's something I had to remember in my marriage, like, we're not fighting each other. We're
Yeah.
fighting together. And so
Yes.
I had to work through that. I had to work through a lot of that ego, because it's like, you got something to say, what's up? I'm right back with it. And it's like, girl, he used to be like, what is wrong with you? Like, he's like, I'm your husband. I'm like,
He's like, hold on, too far. Like, we stay right here.
I used to be like, what that mean? But I got it later, because it's like, he used to have, like, I would never do anything to intentionally hurt you. Like, and he don't. Ron is real. He cool. He's so laid back. He's so chill.
Yeah.
He have his moments. I'm not gonna act like he don't be with the shit sometimes, but he have his moments. But I know his heart and I know his intentions. That's what he always asks me, like, but you know my heart, you know my intentions. And I used to say, and sometimes I have to say, like, although I know your heart and your intentions, doesn't mean that this didn't sit well with me. But I have to be more mature about how I communicate that to him versus, knocking shit over.
I feel you. I wanted to actually, I know you speak a lot. You speak very well of Kenya. Do you have any other mentors that you've had during this journey?
Definitely. Rev Jeff was a major part of, he also played a big part in my journey. Like, I've learned so much from him, and I still do. I reach out to him when I need some advice.
Yes.
Of course, my sister Tiffany, it's my people call them mentor, but I call them like-minded. Like, I'm just attracted to people who may be on the journey, who have been on the journey, when there are things that I need to go to them about certain things. But yeah, it's not, I can't tell you it's expansive. There are people that I follow on Instagram that I never met before that I'm learning so much from too. So
yes,
it's not even just that, but it's also like my biggest mentor has been life experiences.
Okay.
And really just sitting and reflecting and integrating those things that I've learned and staying open to it. But yes, they definitely have been a major part to this journey, still holding it down, still holding me up, because
you're still growing.
Yeah, and I'm human too, and I fall apart at times, and I get inside my head so much that I have to be reminded to move from my heart and to listen to the voice of God and discern in the voice of God. So I can't just say, it's just, I feel like everybody who I come in contact with, my clients have been mentors to me. Yes. And it's because of hearing their stories, or even learning or knowing how I have impacted or influenced their life in a way of, because I literally do this for the people.
Yes. Tell me some tools that you use in your practice that you could not live without.
I can't live without movement.
Okay.
I cannot live without quiet.
Okay.
There are days, sometimes multiple days during the week, where I don't turn on the TV, don't listen to music. I just lay in stillness and quiet. And I require that. I require so much alone time. And you were talking about, when you were so social and going out and doing this and doing that, and it's because maybe you weren't being yourself, or that's what you needed. For me, I definitely wasn't being myself. I just had this fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Not being included because of some of my own trauma, right? And so I would go against the grain, and I would be out in these spaces. I would be doing things that I hate it. I like the next day or later that night, I would just beat myself up and pick myself apart because I knew it, but I decided to do it anyway. And the way that I feel people's energy, I just was thinking, when I learned more about myself and how energy affects me, my body and stuff, I was like, how was I surviving? This is what you put me down. And I used to think that I was depressed. I wasn't depressed. It was literally other energy that wasn't mine, like people's moods and feelings that I would just absorb in the midst of my own, and just not know how to, this doesn't belong to you. Get this stuff off of you.
Yes.
So movement is very important. Quiet, stillness, time to myself is very important. that was like really hard for my husband when we came into this union, because he used to, at first he used to internalize me needing a long time and equating it to like, I didn't want to be around him. But I'm like, no, like I taught my kids this. It was just me and the twins, I used to say, mommy isn't a mommy until the clock say 6 o'clock. And when the clock says 6 o'clock, you can come and knock on my door because mommy needs to take some alone time. And I think it's important for you guys to have y'all space. Just that I can hear him going up and down the hallway, checking the clock, the digital clock. 5:59, I could see them like the little feet are up under my door, having a seat. As soon as 6 o'clock hit, one to be sitting in the kitchen, the other one be by the door. He says 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. Mommy, it's time. And like I knew I always needed that, right? I have to be by myself. I'm a big note taker. Sometimes it might not be me just taking my notebook and writing in my journal. It's literally me using notes on the phone. And I know both of them have a different type of impact, but I have to move a lot of what's going on here.
Get that air, baby. Get that out. Like I've been journaling since I was like 6 years old. Like, and it's just because I have so many thoughts during the day. Like I got to get all that out. Then I can like move, or just having those random thoughts that might not mean something just yet, but I need to put them down. So I'm in my phone too, like, let me get this out.
I still have all of my old journals. I go back and read them from when I was younger and stuff too. Like it's so amazing, like where I am now versus what I was writing about then. And then my other tool is this. I cannot
water all day, every day. I'm a water person.
On my body, going in my body. Water is very needed. Showers are a girl's best friend, like especially intuitive.
Yes.
Energy wise, like you have to watch the aura.
It feels, yes. I'm saying with you there. Same. I like that. This is like a new question that I'm adding because I am a certified life coach specializing in happiness and fulfillment, trying to get some joy to the people. I want to ask everybody, tell me what your idea of happiness is right now, because we know that changes, fluid, but what's your idea of happy?
My idea of happy is flowing. Just moving with the waves and not trying to control or resist or go against them, but just allowing it to allow me to flow. I sometimes can struggle with that because of the environment that I grew up in. I grew up needing to control my environment because that's what made me feel safe. But although it made me feel safe, it no longer works, right? It no longer works with me being a wife. It no longer works as me being a mother. Like I can't control my children. They're not for me to control. So I have to allow them to be. And it's a lot of things that they do that, because I want to. The other day, Kenya had left Ronnie a gift on the porch, and it was a sensory box, and it had all these different color rice. When she colored the rice, but they were all in their own Ziploc bag. And right as I go to open it, my phone buzzed, and it's Kenya, and she says to me, "Let her mix that rice together."
That's what I was about to say. This Gemini child is about to open up all these, do this, and do this.
But she knows, because it's like the Virgo in me is like, it's supposed to look and be like this, right? And so that happens too often for me, and it blocks me, it hinders me. And so it's funny because she knows it's about me, and she was like, it's okay for her to mix this rice together. I said, girl, I'm watching her literally do this right now, and I'm cringing on the inside. I don't know why. Like, why does that bother me so much? But it's like, it's not supposed to be that way. So like, even with that, like I'm thinking that things are supposed to be this way. And it's like, no, be open to flow.
Yeah.
And when you're open to flow, to me, flow feels like alignment. When somebody asks me, what is alignment to you? I'm like, flow.
Yes.
When you're not pushing up against or resisting, you flowing.
Yeah, like allowing things to come to you, like the way you interact in the world, everything. Like I'm gonna go to the store, or just move through your day without trying to make sure everything happens according to plan. That's something I have to work on too, because if I got it planned out, I think everything's supposed to happen like this, or like before, like when you would have did that, it wouldn't have agitated me. You're a friend, but I just would have been like, man, I gotta wait. I had something else planned after this. I'm like, no, like things come up. She had somebody come into her house. She agreed to do this. We're gonna chill. We're gonna press mute. We can do something else real quick while that's going on. That's new for me too. Just being like, because now we got to have the rest of this beautiful conversation after we took that break still, instead of
it was something that you said. I was like, yeah, that's it. But I just lost my thought, right? And
it's okay.
If it's meant for me to say, it'll come back to me. But
yeah,
it was something you just said. But yeah, learning to just stay open and flow is like, it's been a game changer for me. And it has created a lot of happiness in my life. Okay, that's what it was, the planning. When you say everything goes according to plan, I've learned that everything is going according to plan. When the plan shifts, though, when there's a shift in the plan, is it because you didn't consult with spirit first? Because had you had a conversation, you would have known to, like there will be things that you would know to do, know when to pivot in those moments like you did. Yes. And so sometimes I think when things don't go according to our plan, it's because we never included God in it.
Yes, that part. Ooh. You've been giving me some little gems this whole conversation. Like, I love talking to my people. I haven't got a chance to chat with for a minute. I do like to do a portion of the show as well, because me and we've been on this call for like a second, and I don't want to keep her all day, but
you're gonna have a lot of editing to do.
Listen, I'm like the video part. I can do the audio. The audio is easy for me. The video, that ain't in my wheelhouse. So somebody else gonna be doing that for me. But tell me something that you're grateful for today.
I am definitely grateful for my support system. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for this home. I'm grateful for my clients. Like, I am so grateful to God for the position that I am in and who I have become, and allow myself to just be. And I'm grateful for the impact and the changes that I'm seeing that I wanted to see, and it started with me. And so I'm seeing how I'm having a ripple effect on the overall collective, just starting with one and letting it move out. And so I am definitely grateful for where God has caught me. It hasn't been beautiful. I ain't gonna act like it's been rainbows and butterflies, but it definitely, it was all worth it.
Yes.
All worth it.
Today I'm grateful for, I feel like every time I do an episode with a guest, I always just I'm grateful that I get to share space with you. And I'm so I'm just amazed by your journey and watching it, and I wish I could explain to people. I feel like I was all wrapped up in a group of people who we were all out here. We were having a good time at the time of what we knew to do. And I've gotten to just see everybody evolve and really kind of grow into themselves and who they are, and mothers and wives. And I'm just grateful for being able to actually be a part of that and be in community with people and be able to be like, yo, I love everything about you. Please come chat with me for an hour or so on my podcast. And that you obliged. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. And with that, I want to go ahead and close the episode, and thank you guys for tuning in again. This is episode number, what episode is this? 71. And this is Real Talk with my homegirl, Woo. Woo, tell the listeners where they can find you, how they find you, your socials, your website, how they can get in with some of this healing from you.
I can be found at my website is www.wellgroundedhealing.com. There you can book sessions. You can kind of see what's going on. I just started an Instagram specifically for that page, but right now, to learn more about me, my story, because I'm always sharing so much of my life on Instagram, is at Woo, WOO _ Greer, GREER. So yeah, that's where you can find me and find out more about me.
Yes, and I will leave all of that information to find Woo in the show notes. And again, this is episode number 71, Real Talk with my girl Woo Greer, and we're gonna close this out. I'll talk to you guys again very soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.